And now, from Pensacola, Florida, it's Within Reason with Bob Kerrigan and Bill Rankin.
Good evening and welcome to Within Reason with Bob Kerrigan and Bill Rankin. Bob is away, I'm Bill Rankin, and with me is a gentleman I've looked forward to having on the show for some time. This is Professor Clarence Elebash, Professor Emeritus from UWF, which he tells me he was very generous, self-effacing, and said it just means retired, but it does mean more than that. It's an honor that you have to achieve by the recognition of your peers. And Dr. Elebash, stay tuned for this now. Dr. Elebash knows an extraordinary amount about the city of Pensacola and city finances. And this is my label. I don't know if you'd agree with it. I think he's a public intellectual, which means he's not shilling for a business. He hasn't got investments that he's pushing. He's not trying to advocate for some cause, but he's just interested and knowledgeable about ideas and willing to share those ideas and that knowledge, and I think you're going to find it interesting. You have written and refined a little paper that talks about Pensacola General, yes. And I think that's a good place to start, about the good and the bad, and what do you think about, and well, mainly from a financial point of view?
Well, Pensacola has many assets and advantages. In the past, we were the envy of neighboring communities along the Gulf Coast. But Pensacola fell behind. We did not do like Savannah and Charleston or even Little Fairhope. We fell behind for a number of reasons, several reasons. But the main thing to address now is we have lots of assets, and we've got to start some kind of revival.
Well, what did Fairhope and Savannah and those places do that Pensacola didn't?
The access to the waterfront. See, one of the reasons the city of Pensacola has had problems is we had 2 miles and 100 acres of waterfront and no access. Yeah. But then a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we opened Plaza de Luna. It was an instant success. People like to see the waterfront. I'm told they also like to see mountains. So if you've got mountains or waterfront, open it up to the public and let them get there. There's been a number of visitors here who are urban experts. Ken Ford at the IHMC has had a series of them. And there's two common themes for revival of a community. One is walkability, and the other is convenient, safe access to the waterfront if you have a waterfront. And we have not done that. But this community as a whole has so many advantages. We've got the beaches, we got the National Seashore, we've got the Navy Museum, the Blue Angels.
Got a regional airport.
A big asset, big asset. And incidentally, the city doesn't pay anything into it or get anything out. It's a freestanding business on its own. But we have health care, outstanding health care. We have a splendid state college, an excellent university, and we have a little-known Pensacola Christian College, which is also nice. We have all kinds of assets, but we have not taken advantage of them. And we need a revival, and the revival should be downtown because that's where the historic district is, that's where the cultural activities are. And downtown Pensacola is the financial and business center for the entire two-county area. We're a two-county economy, Santa Rosa County and Escambia County. So we need to start a revival. Now, when people start talking about revival, they start talking about financial incentives to get business to move here. Right. That's not what you need to start with. In order to start a revival, you need an attractive, clean, and safe community, an attractive community that people want to look at. It's safe and it's clean, plus quality public education, and that's where the emphasis should be on. And unfortunately, there's a lot to be done downtown. Roundabouts to make access to Seville easier, sidewalk repair, access to the waterfront. We've got about a mile or walk along the waterfront from the bridge to Bartram Park. And it's got a spectacular view.
Yeah.
But you can't get to it.
Right, it's hard to get across the street.
You got to go up to Palafox to get a safe crossing. You got to go to Palafox Street and get a traffic signal to cross over. We need access there. We need to connect things. For example, we got the beautiful new Maritime Park. We need to connect that conveniently for pedestrians going to the Palafox corridor and on over to the historic district.
Now you talk about the waterfront access. Isn't that what the Community Maritime Park was all about?
That's right. That's right. And not only is the ballpark a great success, there's some early indications that made that the amphitheater is a success also. But that remains to be seen. But now, back to the revival of Pensacola, there's a problem. We've invested so much in the Maritime Park that it's going to be many years before we have money to invest in anything else. The city is obligated on that $45 or $50 million in bonds plus $19 million to ECUA to clean up the sewer plant property. The city doesn't have any money, and as we mentioned before the show started, there are things that we're no longer going to have that we did have. Because the city has no money. Yeah. Evenings in Old Seville is a huge success and has been for 25 years, but it's going. Some of the things down at Plaza de Luna, like the Friday night movies, they're gone. We have a Veterans Memorial Park that's been neglected, and the city has not accepted, says they can't afford to accept responsibility for maintaining it and cleaning it up.
Well, now, the paper today was just full of praise for the baseball team. Was a huge success. People love it. It really is. I ran into a young lady who I saw at the last game I was at, which was Saturday, and she said something pretty good. She'd only been to one game, and she said, it's a happy place. You know, little kids are running around, and it is. So with that being a big success, they couldn't have planned for it to be any better a success than it's been, selling out a lot of games. What went wrong?
What's wrong is that what the public doesn't understand, the baseball team didn't build the ballpark. The taxpayers built the ballpark. And regardless of how, there's several ways you can figure it, but I say it cost the city between $20 and $25 million for the ballpark. Wow. Because in addition to building the ballpark itself, there's some other joint costs and other costs associated with it. And the city is going to be paying that back at a rate of about $3 million a year for the next 25 or 30 years.
That's a lot of money.
So there's no money to do other things that need to be done downtown.
Okay. Now, cities don't build parks to make money out of them. I mean, you build a nice city park.
Ballparks
let's just take parks in general.
Yeah, right.
The idea of a park is it's attractive. It improves the quality of life. I mean, Pensacola's got a lot of parks. They don't charge admission.
That's right.
But the idea is it makes the whole city more attractive, increases property values.
That's right.
So what's wrong here? Just too expensive.
What's wrong is that people spend a lot of money at the ballpark.
Yeah.
But that money is money that's not being spent elsewhere in the Pensacola area. Ballparks do not attract out-of-town people. People don't come from out of town and spend money to see the ballpark attracts local people, a few out of town, like from Mobile, and Mobile's playing in. But likewise, some that's all.
Well, surely we get people from Okaloosa County and Santa Rosa County.
I don't think you get many from Okaloosa, but you get some from Santa Rosa County, I'm sure, because Gulf Breeze.
Right.
And that's part of the and people come from Gulf Breeze over here at ball games, and they spend money, what, $40, $50 a night for a family to go.
Probably. Sure.
That's money that's not being spent probably in Gulf Breeze. And we're in the same economic unit with Gulf. What affects Gulf Breeze affects us.
So it's just shifting money around in the local economy.
So and it's hard to find. I've never seen a study that recommended building ballparks for municipal governments. I've seen lots of quotations that say ballparks are bad investments.
Really?
Yes, ballparks are bad.
Well, surely before we had this ballpark, we had impact studies and people looking at, before they spent all these millions, they must have looked at it.
The city never got an independent expert on ballparks to advise them. Never. They had an independent real estate advisor, and he advised them not to hire the fellow they hired to manage the Maritime Park.
Yeah.
So much for that advice. but as far as I can tell, they never talked to anyone who was independent. They only listened to those who would benefit from the proposal.
Well, to bring us up, I remember seeing the first drawing of the Community Maritime Park, and UWF was involved. There was going to be a maritime museum down there. A lot of stuff that we don't have now. What we have is a ballpark and an amphitheater, and it's a terrific ballpark by all accounts.
Beautiful lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What went wrong? Where did all that other stuff go?
Well, it slowly frittered away. The UWF was going to have a classroom building down there.
Yes.
That was never really going to happen, I don't think, and that fell off early on. The Maritime Museum fell apart because there was no money. To build a Maritime Museum required $20 million to build it, and the university was going to borrow, was going to raise $10 million, and then they were going to get a state matching grant. The state had a matching grant program. Well, hard times came. The university could only raise $3 or $4 or $5 million at the most, and the state canceled the matching program. So there was that. So that's the Maritime Park and the Maritime Research Station went away.
Yeah.
And there were other things. If you recall, the brochure showed a fishing village down there.
Yeah.
I don't think that was anything but ballyhoo to begin with. But it never happened. But the one that really is interesting, they showed tall ships down there.
Yeah.
There's no deep water access to the Maritime Park.
That was never part of it.
And there's not going to be. That used.
Yeah, those tall ships have to go down, way down in the water.
That used to be the port of Pensacola.
Yeah.
And that maybe I wasn't here then, but maybe you were. There were 3 wharves that went out, and railroad cars went out there, and it caught on fire. And
I didn't know that. When was that?
Oh, about 1958. I'm told. I wasn't living there then, but I suppose about 1958 or 59. It caught on fire, and so now there's a whole bunch of pilings out there, hundreds, if not thousands, at least hundreds, but probably thousands of pilings out there, which obstructs.
So you're not going to get any tall ships in there without cleaning it up.
There may be a railroad car, a freight car, too, out there. So you say there's not going to be any
no tall ships.
Yeah. Now, would we miss anything? The convention centers. Everybody's building convention centers there, and they're not profitable.
So we got a ballpark, and the city's on the hook for a lot of money, despite the success of the baseball team.
That's right. The success of the baseball park does not affect the city's bond payments, nor some direct and indirect costs the city is going to have to spend to maintain.
And you don't think the ancillary benefits of, all the excitement and people coming downtown are really that big a deal?
Well, no, I think it's nice, and it's certainly people have enjoyed it. There's no question.
If you go down there, and I've been to a bunch of games, people enjoy it.
That there are other things to be done, and there's no money because the future monies are all tied up in that. Right. There's some other things that the city's obligated on, but the money's tied up there. The city's one hope to get some real money for a revival is the so-called restore funds. The University of West Florida wants to get a grant from the Restore Fund to redo the historic district.
Really?
The University of West Florida owns, I think it's 26 buildings in the Seville area.
I didn't know that.
The University of West Florida inherited them when the old, what they call it, historical authority, or whatever it was. So the University of West Florida owns them. And they get by, but as I heard President Bench say about a year or two ago, we need a magnet to get people to come down there.
Right.
And they don't have a magnet.
So that's not the magnet, apparently.
The University of West Florida proposal, and I've heard it outlined several times, is to refurbish the Seville area and make it into a historical attraction. The theory is, and I don't know enough to say it's right or wrong, the theory is that more and more people want to travel to historical heritage areas in their own country, and that cities that have reestablished and brought up to date and refined their historical areas are getting a lot of visitors. And beyond that, I can only refer you to the University of West Florida.
Yeah. Wow.
But that's
not a bad. I mean, Pensacola sure has a lot of history going way back.
The city should latch on to that big time because that's the only option, only opportunity that I know of where they can get a big share, the big hunk of money to make a real difference downtown.
Well, okay. I'm Bill Rankin, and you've joined Within Reason. With me is Professor Emeritus from UWF, Dr. Clarence Elebash, and we're going to take a break in a minute. But one thing we didn't do is talk about you. I mean, being a professor was your second career, wasn't it?
Yes, I was in the Air Force for 23 years and went back to school after I retired from the Air Force.
And tell us what you did in the Air Force.
Well, I was a pilot, but I spent a lot of time in administrative work. In the 23 years I was in, I spent 7 years overseas and 9 in Washington, D.C. area. And so that didn't leave much for the left over for it. But I was very fortunate. The Air Force sent me to the University of Michigan to get a master's degree in business administration. And that was very beneficial. Has been all my life.
You came out of the Air Force with an MBA, and
then I went back
to
Florida State and got a doctorate in business administration.
And came over here. Well, now you worked for the Board of Regents for a while.
I worked for 2 years on the staff of the Board of Regents on a low-level budget job.
And came to, and I don't think I've got the years right. Were you part of the first cohort of professors at UWF?
No, I came along 6, 8 years later.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I came along in the mid-70s.
Okay, and taught at UWF for
19 years. Wonderful experience. University of West Florida was very good to me, and I'm very grateful.
Well, you've been good to it, and since then, you interact with the public. The way I know you interact with the public is you write a lot of viewpoints that appear in the Pensacola News Journal as recently as a day or two ago. Any other way? Do you lecture?
No,
not anymore.
No.
Yeah, but for what it's worth, I think what you do is very valuable because you're objective.
That's not universally thought.
Yeah. Well, if you take
we're going to talk about the port a little bit. I'm going to tell you the port.
Yeah.
The port lobby is as strong as it can be.
There are people who think if you say a bad word about anything going on at the community Maritime Park, you're just unpatriotic. We all love Mr. Studer and we all love our baseball team, and we do. It's very well run and it's very good. But we shouldn't leave out the fact that the city is going to have to, our little city is just going to have to fund it like crazy.
That's right.
Yeah, but I think you're a unique resource. You're not running for office.
No.
You don't have a business you want people to patronize.
No.
You're just interested in this stuff and willing to share it. I don't know. If we've got a break coming up, this would probably be a good time because we've got some other important. Well, the port is one of the topics, and public pensions are another. And unfortunately, the theme is pretty much financial challenges for the city of Pensacola.
Well, the whole country's in financial challenges,
Absolutely.
private and public.
Yeah, yeah, and we've talked about it a bunch on this show. Public sector pensions are a challenge, to put it mildly, and we can talk specifically about Pensacola if we're ready for a break. Within Reason will be back in a short time. Please stay with us. Good. Okay, so we got a little bit.